Here are 5 things to just absolutely not do if you want people to take you seriously as a guitar player. Hey everyone, I'm Jack Fossett and welcome to Real Guitar Talk, and today we're talking about 5 things that I think you should absolutely not do if you're a guitar player and you're kind of trying to make it in really any setting, whether you're trying to, make it in your band, make it as a solo performer, make it as a session player, or whatever you're doing. 5 things that you shouldn't do. And the important thing to remember is that some of these really apply to a lot of things, not just guitar playing. Some are very guitar specific, but some are not. Some are just really general life advice on how to be professional. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. So obviously this one is pretty guitar specific. This is an old stigma of guitar players, right? The guitar players always have to be the loudest. They're always so loud and bury everyone else in the band. There's a combination of things here. It's not just about not playing too loud. It's about having the right gear for the right situation. We obviously want to be heard as guitar players. The thing is that doesn't always mean being louder. It means playing the right gear that suits the band, where you kind of fit right into a sonic space where everyone can hear you, but you're not overpowering anything. So, the bigger the band you are, you're going to want something that kind of cuts through and sits in its own frequency that doesn't compete with anything else. If you're playing in a smaller group, you're going to need to fill more sonic space. So you need to think about a bigger sound that kind of, fills up more and doesn't make everything sound thin. And whatever other situation there could be. But it's about not overpowering. And the other thing, and this is really important, is it's also about paying attention to what's going on in the song. You need to be forward and heard when you need to be forward and heard. When other people are doing things, you need to back off. You need to, you don't need to stop playing, obviously, in many situations, but you need to lean into it a little bit less. You need to make sure that you're not mugging, as that was an old theater term for people who have acted before. In fact, I just jammed with a guy that I haven't played with in like 10 years, and we were kind of playing together, and he was actually really impressed. He was like, I love playing with people who play quiet when it's not their turn to play. He's like, you were backing off. And I was like, that's just kind of what you do, I think, at least for me. So never be too loud. Make sure you find the right sonic space where you fit, and never play over people when it's not your time. Number 4. All right, obviously this is pretty much just general life advice. Don't be late. I know that sounds silly, but particularly if you have a gig, should certainly show up on time. If you have a rehearsal, show up on time. If you're meeting somebody about a band thing, show up on time. It's just common courtesy. That's all I have to say about that one. Number 3. So I got hired for this band last year, and I played a handful of gigs with them. I wasn't a regular member, and I have my own group and everything. But great band, really enjoyed playing with them. There was another guitar player that they went with when I wasn't available, and one of the things that they would always say to me when I was there was they were so impressed that I learned the songs, that I took the time to actually learn the songs, learn the changes, even called and asked questions, hey, could you clarify this change for me, and things. I'm not trying to say this in a way that toots my own horn or anything like that. It's just, again, that's kind of like when you join a group, you got to learn the songs. Thing was is that the other guitar player that they had, he would always come in and be like, geez, I didn't have time to work on this one. I'm just going to noodle, okay? You guys play, kind of hold down the rhythm. I'll just kind of noodle, and it'll be cool, right? There's a lot of that in music. There's a lot of people who do that, and it's really not good. And if you really want to be taken seriously, put in the time and effort to learn the songs that you're playing. And part of this is, again, also kind of relating to the first one, have the right gear. So make sure that you have the right stuff that you need for the right situations. That could vary wildly depending on what you're doing. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to buy a brand new rig. If you're kind of get into a new situation, you can do a lot with an EQ pedal. And in fact, I'm going to link below to a pretty inexpensive EQ pedal. Affiliate link, buy through it, helps my channel. You know the drill. You don't need to go out and buy some fancy new expensive rig to make it work. My point is that you just need to find that space and do what you need to do to fit into that space. But know the material, be prepared when you show up, and have the right gear for the situation that you want to do. Number 2. This one's interesting, at least, well, I mean, it's all interesting to me, that's what I'm talking about it, but one of the things that I went through when I was younger was, when I was kind of an aspiring guitar player and starting to get gigs with different bands, was I tried to impose too much of myself when it didn't fit. Now, here's the thing. You always want to be yourself as a player, but you also need to fit. The same way we were talking about how you need to fit into a sonic space, you also need to fit musically. And sometimes you need to adapt, be true to yourself and be true to your music, but also recognize that not every situation you're going to play music in is exactly about what you want to do. So one of the things that I did in some of my early bands was, some of the bands that I played with, they were great bands and ones that I had a lot of fun with, but they weren't necessarily 100% the type of music that I wanted to do. So a couple of times I tried to put too much of what I wanted to do sort of superimposed over what they were doing, and it missed the music. It missed that musical aspect, that conversational aspect. It seemed out of place. It's like I remember once at a blues contest, a Guitar Center blues contest, there was this metal kid who came in and just started like shredding over it. And he wasn't a bad player, but it like made everyone cringe because he just was not at all like paying attention to the music. He was just kind of being like, yeah, I'm going to come in and show all these blues guys what's up. And it was just really, really awkward. Now, one of the things that you might need to do, and this is something that I discovered about myself, is you need to have an outlet for what you want to do. You need to have an outlet for your own music. But just keep in mind that if you're playing in a group, you don't have to not be yourself, but you need to sort of make what you do work for the music. And the number one thing. Oh, this one drives me totally, totally bonkers. You know the gig hoppers? I call them gig hoppers. There's a whole slew of musicians out there who will join your band as long as you have a paying gig. Which is, I'm not going to put that down. Obviously, there are some people who, musically, they can't devote themselves to a certain project, particularly like an original project, unless they're getting money for it. I get that. I'm not criticizing that. But what I will criticize about a lot of people in that sort of level of musicianship is because they gig hop so much, they play so many gigs, a lot of them think they're too good to practice. Be like, meh. I actually had guys in this kind of level once tell me, we had played a gig. This was an original band. They were kind of on board, and I was trying to get more gigs and things. And we played a gig, and it went pretty well. But there were a couple, there were some missed cues and some mistakes and stuff, and that happens and all. So I called another practice before the next gig. I said, hey, guys, I really want to iron out some of these details. And one of them actually said, I'm not making this up. He said, I don't think you're giving us enough credit for how good we are that you think we need to practice like this. All the best musicians that I know really value rehearsal. All the pros that I know, everyone who's worth their salt in music, value rehearsal. Now, I'm a big Patriots fan. Now, before you say that I'm a front runner or anything like that, I'm not a front runner. I've been a Patriots fan since before Tom Brady, and I have the Andy Katzenmoyer jersey to prove it. I don't have an Andy Katzenmoyer jersey, but I know who Andy Katzenmoyer is, and so that totally counts. Regardless, so obviously, Tom Brady, let's just say he's a special man to me. That's, it's a Patriots fan thing. One of the things that I've always loved about him was that even after he had won, tons of Super Bowls and championships, he was always practicing and trying to get better. And that's something that I use that, teaching to my kids too, even just like, hey, look at this guy. He was like, on top of the world, had everything that anyone could want, and he still practiced and still tried to get better. Never, ever, ever think that you're too good to practice, because the best musicians never think that. So put in the work, find your spot, show up on time, don't impose yourself, and again, make sure that you practice, because the more you practice, and if you think practice is such a chore, practicing is playing music. Don't be one of those people who's just in music for the accolades that you get when you're on stage. Like, I get it, being on stage in front of people and playing and having them cheer, and there's some excitement that goes on there, and it's a really special kind of thing that we all thrive on. But you should also be doing it just for the joy of playing music. If you could never play in front of a crowd again, would you still pick up the guitar? Obviously, a lot of you who watch my channel are people who are very happy being at-home players, and I have a deep respect for that, because you do it just for the love of playing. And I think a lot of people who get up on stages and things and gig hop and stuff like that, I think they lose that. I think it becomes too much about the praise and the accolades, and it's like it really should be about music and the love of music. That's what I got. 5 things to absolutely never do if you want to be taken seriously as a guitar player. What ones would you add to this list? And also, please let me know if there are any subjects you want me to tackle in Real Guitar Talk. I'm Jack Fossett. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Have an open heart to everybody's choices, yet you feel that anyone who disagrees is just obsessed.